Okay. There is one life coming through. Oh, okay. She's very interesting. Um, I was confused because they're showing me a man and then a woman, a man and then a woman. I'm like, what is this? This is like American Revolutionary time. And you are feisty. Like you are. That's like who you are. So there's this woman. Her name is Elizabeth, and her family lived in the suburbs of Philadelphia area. Um, and so, like, all the men in her family died in the revolution, like in battles. Every single one of them, the boys, the men, the uncles, the father, like everyone. It's just like a few women. They're like, and she said it was rough. Like bad stuff happened. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of energy coming in today. So she said it was rough. A lot of bad stuff happened. She doesn't want to get into that now. Um, but she decided she was not going to take this. So she bound her breasts and put on, one of her brother's clothing, packed a rucksack, and went off to war. And she said, most of the men in the battle weren't in uniforms. It's not like anyone could afford all that. It was only like the wealthy people had uniforms. So she went out with like, I don't know, a musket, whatever weapons, and she fought in battle and she killed a lot. She said she had all she was a ball of anger in a bag of flesh. And all she wanted to do was get back at those who had destroyed everyone in her family, basically. And she's showing like a few women at home who are just like shells of who they had been, and all the men dead, children dead, just animals dead, you know, um, blood soaked in what used to be their fertile ground. So she wanted to take it all back out on these men, and she killed and killed and killed and killed. And then the war was over, and the only time she felt good was when she was killing British. That was it. And, you know, the war was over, and she didn't know what to do with herself because she no longer felt helpless, but she felt as bad as before and even more angry. And she doesn't want to get into the details of it, but some of the guys who had known her all this time found out she was a woman and like gang raped her. At this point, she had no love for anyone. And she didn't even want to go home because she didn't know what she would find there. And so she just you know, went out into the woods. She just went, and she kept walking. She said she had a mule. She and her mule kept walking. They walked and walked. She said she had a mule because she stole it off a dead guy who was dead because she shot him. And she just kept walking with her mule and the pack on the mule. Well, she said the guy deserved to be shot. So um, she didn't want to be a psychopath, and she didn't want to be angry, but she didn't want anything she had. And she said they went for weeks. and months. She wanted to get as far away of everyone as she could. Um, and she's wearing man's clothing because you're not going to go through the wilderness in, women's clothing. Um, and so, as is inevitable, some Native Americans found her. And at first thought she was a man. They were threatening to kill her. And she knew she's surrounded by these, Indian men. And so she pulled off her hat, but long hair didn't mean that much. And she pulled open her shirt, and they saw that she was like still wrapped, because she said bouncing bosom doesn't help when you're in the middle of nowhere. But they saw when it was wrapped, they knew what it meant. So she was going to unwrap, and they're like, okay, you're a girl. We got it. And they took her back to their people, which showing like some log cabins along with teepees. And I'm asking them, they said, okay, they're saying that the ability to make log cabins didn't come with white men, but that certainly some of the techniques were refined with the coming of the white man. And they brought her ahead to the chief. And the chief was, she didn't speak their language. She didn't know what they were saying. And this chief thought she was a man. He was like raised up this like spear. He's ready to like kill her. And they're like pointing to her boobs. And the chief was like, oh. And then they went and they got this woman who was a white woman, but dressed like the Indians. And she came forward. She spoke English, but it was obvious she had not spoken for a while. So it was almost like she was speaking a second language that she was proficient but not fluent in. So Elizabeth, who said her male name was Ben, but Elizabeth moved in with these people. And when she told them her story, one, they appreciated how many white people she had killed and that she had the ability to do so. That was a good thing for them. And two, they know the importance of great healing. And she spent the next few years working with like, not the male shamans so much, the female shamanesses, which are more about healing of the soul. And she worked with them and started studying their ways. Became like a shamaness in her own power. What is she now? Like 20 years old? 20, 21. So young to have been through all this. And she said she never lost her rage, but she learned to open her rage up, almost like a cabinet door, so that other feelings could live there with the rage. She learned to be comfortable with it and to acknowledge this is part of me, but it does not dictate who I am or how I feel. She never lost it. And she said, as her new family often had to move further and further away from any type of civilization, at that point, not so much because they were being warred upon like the Great West, but because they had a distaste of being too near the whites. And they were semi-nomadic anyway. Usually they were nomadic within a cycle, but they now were becoming nomadic within a direction. But she said the rest of her life was a good life. It was clean and pure. Um, that if she had not gone through all she had in her youth, she would not have been helpful to her new family in protecting them in their ways against the interlopers. And she learned to forgive all those who had pushed her here, because being here was more extraordinary than her life ever could have been. She learned to find balance within herself, but she never lost her rage. And this is the lesson that she has for you. That people would tell her, oh, you must forgive everyone. She's like, she said, it's not about forgiving others. It's about finding peace within yourself. They're responsible for themselves. She said, I'm not going to forgive anyone who destroyed that which I love, or harmed me, or killed my family. But I'm not going to walk around with a broken, distraught, dysfunctional heart just because those people are, horrible. She's got a slang, a whole bunch of words that are coming out that I don't want to repeat, but you get the gist. She wants to talk for a moment about forgiveness. Forgiveness is not ever condoning someone else's behavior. It's not about letting them be unaccountable. She said everyone is accountable for their actions. Forgiveness is about understanding you don't need to have them still own real estate in your heart. That your heart can be free. And she said, she saw things very black and white. If someone caused harm to her and the law wasn't going to do anything about it, she'll kill them. She feels like that's justified. That's the way she lived her life. But she's not going to carry around the pain of that hurt in her heart forever, because that's like a worm eating at her heart. And she has no desire for this person to harm her, to spend the rest of her life getting more and more harm from them, even after she killed them, which they deserved. She's no shades of gray in her life. But she said that is the art of forgiveness, allowing yourself to be free from that a-hole, basically. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. She said, you've still got a few worms in your heart, but understand, each of us, when we die, we get a life review. And we see like where we were on our soul path, where we were honored soul contract, and where we went off. Where we may have harmed someone because it was agreed we would do so to project them down a path they had to go down, or where we're just causing harm uninvited and causing mayhem and destruction that has a ripple effect of damaging that which is beautiful. Anyone who is off their path or causing harm, when they die, that's what karma is. They don't owe it to anyone else. They have to atone within themselves for it. So everyone gets their own karmic debt afterlife, but they're saying at this moment, you don't have any karmic debt to anyone. So you can forgive yourself everything and understand that anyone who has caused harm to you, they're going to be accountable to themselves. No one gets away scotch-free. It's time for you to start really finding peace within your heart and understanding that it's okay to feel good when they get their comeuppance. That doesn't make you malevolent or bad or whatever. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. she said her life became better and better and better as she got older. And she said, the pain of her youth never really went away, but she had so much good stuff coming after that that it became less, smaller and smaller by comparison of all the extraordinary magic that her life became, living with people of nature and, you know, the healing things she learned to do, the ceremonies and the vision quests and spirit journeys, you know. Um, I think, yes. Oh, we have hit an hour.